Good morning. This week I drove through Lyantonde, Masaka. I passed by the new district of Kalungu, through Bukoma Nsimbi, on to Sembabule, and then I hit the new tarmac road that takes us from Sembabule all the way to Mpigi. I turned off at Madu in Gomba district, and I went to Kasambia near Kabamba, where the train in the 60s and 70s used to stop on its journey to Kasese. And then on my way back, I drove through in the night a small river there with a bridge called Akagari. Akagari, for those who understand a bit of central southwestern Uganda, is the border point between what we used to call Gomba or Igomba among the Banyankole and Wera, which is Sembabule. So it's called Akagari, small river there. I drove through Echirehe, Mwiti, Rugshuru. These are all places in Sembabule, Wenyena, Metuma, Ntuti, on to Chinoni and back to our farm in Weshari. In this drive, both during the day and in the night, there are two things that became clear to me. One, that there has been improvement in road and power infrastructure in our country, especially in these, agricultural, grazing, commercial parts of the southwestern part of the country, that there's been improvement in power and road infrastructure and the emergence of little towns and trading centers, which show you the increasing rate of urbanization. Ideally, this would mean improved incomes for people when this happens. The second thing that I noticed is the increased output in beef, in dairy and crop production, relative increase in that area. But along the way, you see stagnant agricultural rate of earning for peasant farmers. I call this is an oxymoron. You can't be a peasant farmer. Farmer would mean that you've improved productivity. But I call it that way, that terminology, because that's a place of transition that even me, my family and my parents who have long passed on have sort of gone through, transiting from peasantry to commercial farming. So a number of us fall there in the middle. And these people in transition are the ones we need to hold on to in order that we can skill them, we can finance them as a country so that they can increase both productivity at a farm labor level and gross production at a country level. So the wage to the farmer and to farm labor has not increased to match the current increase in the prices of commodities. So in this podcast, I just want to share with you a few things that would create the necessary conditions to increase wages of farm labor or even wages overall for manufacturing and processing based on agriculture, so that we can understand what one needs to do to handle that, because there's clamor to increase wages across not just agriculture, but across all sectors in our country because of what has happened in the world with increase in commodities, count of weather changes, climate change, and political other situations, war in Ukraine and Russia. There's been a clamor for increasing wages relative to increases in prices of these commodities. Now, answering this question helps enterprises in agriculture to focus the work of government and other quasi-government supportive institutions to respond to what really matters. What's the first action we should take? We must reduce the uneven and fair gross agricultural product gap in favor of farm labor or farmers. So the gross agricultural product means the difference between total agricultural output that you produce as a country or as farms versus the cost of farm inputs. So let me just clarify that again. GAP or gross agricultural product means the difference between the total agricultural output measured against the cost of farm inputs. So for a farming and processing business to scale, and even guarantee increasing salaries and wages for its staff, the cost of inputs against the average output or productivity per worker must be balanced, or it should be brought to positive in favor of outputs at a farm level. Today, the cost of urea, which is a key ingredient in dressing maize that we plant for animal feeds, has increased from about 120,000 shillings a bag to about 250,000. This is about 5 million shillings a ton with transportation from cities to our villages. 5 million shillings a ton of urea. Now, obviously, we can produce urea because it's a byproduct of oil and gas, but there is a curve to do that. So we are carrying this huge cost between now, when we have to do this so that we don't suffer a year down the road with low productivity, or we have to ramp up investment in oil and gas in urea production. We are even trying to balance the use of NPK, which is the fertilizer we use, potassium, nitrogen. We are trying to balance it with the use of chicken litter so that we are really able to keep producing and keep staff and keep salaries and keep other costs working against what's happening in the world. So, for example, to plant 80 acres, which we have cleared ahead of the next season of rains, we need 120 bags of urea. At this current cost, we have to spend 30 million shillings from 15 only 9 months ago for us to get there. Now, to get a return of this investment, we must sell a liter of milk on average, 1,700 shillings. But think about this, because we're producers at the farm, we are also processors. Factories and processors cannot make it at this price per liter and survive, because they must sell a liter at not more than 2,400 shillings in order to stay competitive on the market. This means they must pack all their costs on labor, on power and energy, on water. Remember, the fuel costs have also doubled in 10 months. 10 months ago, or even less, we were some 3,000 shillings, 3,100. Yesterday, I bought fuel at 6,150 in the Antonde. It's going up. Now, so processors, if they buy a liter of milk at 1,700, hypothetically, and sell at 2,400, again, hypothetically, these are not actually hypothetical figures, this is what it is, they must park all their costs in the balance of 700 shillings. They are not profitable. So the gross agricultural gap has widened negatively against the farmer. How do we deal with this? There are no short-term solutions. The first is that we could increase productivity per worker. To do that, we got to reskill, to retrain our farm labor or farm-related processing, so that they are able to provide services beyond simply farming to other supportive services at the farm. This means reducing the dependence on a liter of milk so that you diversify the capabilities of these workers. For example, our farm manager, Mr. Andre, at our farm, at Tomosi Farm, he's working with a technical wing, building a technical wing that opens up tractors and equipment, remodels them, and make them, usable for things they would not easily do. For example, spreading chicken litter, or, remodeling, the planting machine to expand the size where the seed falls to the ground, to ensure that these people are not just planting, but they're also repairers of machines. This means in the long run, we would, if 100 of us are doing this at a farm level to be able to manage our costs, it means we would shed off rural agriculture jobs into manufacturing and services. If 100 of us, 100 farms, 100 enterprises do this, in 10 years, this would increase the gross national product or GNP per capita, that's the earning per person of the rural household and our youth, and continue to create jobs even amidst increasing prices. We would increase salaries, and to increase salaries now is an exercise in futility because prices or price increases that we are responding to are triggered by externalities, fuel, urea, and other inputs, and it is made worse by the already underlying structural weaknesses at our farms, the low scale of production, which is a characteristic of peasantry, the lack of capital, the lack of skill to compete at a global level with other producers. These problems are structural and they are exacerbated by increasing prices for inputs. Secondly, increasing wages can also be triggered by improving FDI or foreign direct investment into agricultural value chain enterprises. Value addition enterprises in agriculture receiving foreign direct investment can trigger wage increases. When a country focuses its effort on finding equity funding, on finding partnerships at a global level, which means we have to pitch at that level. Why? Because the world is fast changing in terms of food demand. When you see wildfires in the US, Western Europe, rivers drying up, land reclamation that is no more in many parts of the world, increasing population and mouth to feed, all these things mean attention to increasing productivity and investment in food in Africa. The Ugandan or African farmer and entrepreneur with the right understanding, with the right coordination with decision makers could save the world, but in the process build new agriculture millionaires in a few years to come based on this demand. We must therefore be very deliberate, be very methodical about attracting capital into this sector as a country. Number three, wage increases can also be triggered by increasing the quality and quantity and guess what? The complexity of our country's exports. It's not just the quantity, it's not just the quality, it's also exporting goods of complexity, goods of knowledge, fridges, electronics, things which really move us away from agriculture. When these are exported, when our farms trade with the world, especially the developed markets, there are indelible lessons that we learn from production to processing to packaging to marketing and the general level of expectation of our farms and outlook and our workers increase tremendously. This is why, on a personal level, on our team level, in the public sector, we have a drive to find new niches, new markets, to improve our contact with our traditional markets in the West, like the EU and the UK, to work with farms and government at a granular level to find new ways to sell our products as a country. I'd like to speak more about this in our next segment. Have a great weekend. Bye-bye.
Would like to hear from you. Please email us at info@tapmedia.com and visit our website at www.tapmedia.com. You can also visit our offices located at Tomosi Business Park, Luzira, Port Bell Road, or call 0414 220 702. Thank you.